Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my April and May wrap up and my June TBR. So in the last 2 months I have read 12 books. That seems like so much to me because I'm pretty sure I only read 12 books in all of last year. So I feel very accomplished by that. I kind of get down on myself sometimes for only reading like a book a week or whatever, but most people aren't even reading a book a week, so. And when I break it down into 12 books, that's a lot to me. It's not a lot to some people, but I'm gonna take the accomplishment. Alrighty, so the first book that I read in April is The Bad Beginning. I did talk about this in another video because I filmed a books I read in elementary school video, and this was one of the books that I read. I did tab it a little bit, just marking just a couple things that I noticed and that I liked about the book. And I gave this a 5 stars. It is one of my favorite series. It has been, and it always will be, one of my favorite series, especially that I read as a kid. So if you don't know what this is, it follows the 3 Baudelaire orphans whose parents died in a house fire, and they go off to stay with their distant uncle, cousin, somebody named Count Olaf. He's very bad and very mean to them. And this entire series, which spans 13 books, I think, just follows them literally trying to get away from him. So this is an introduction to Count Olaf and his like diabolical scheming that he does to get the fortune that the kids inherited. So I'm including books that I started in a different month but finished in the month of April. So some of these may be a repeat, but I did finish them in the month of April or May, so that's why they're in here. I haven't done a wrap up in a while though, so they shouldn't be. Next, I read The Last Wife, and this is a story about a woman who claims that her best friend's dying wish was to take care of her family after she's gone, and our main character takes that a little too far and gets involved in some sketchy behavior. You see this story from the perspective of the friend of the lady who died, and she is absolutely obsessed with the other lady's life, like every part of it. She's obsessed with her husband, her kids, like all this stuff, and things in her life are not going well, so she basically tries to implant herself in the other lady's life to get some sort of satisfaction, I guess, or feel something. I have no idea, but it is creepy, and it's like not a hard read, but it's almost hard to read because she's literally crazy and you're getting her internal monologue and her justifying the things that she's doing. It's just nuts. I gave it 2 stars. I think part of it had to do with it being a little bit difficult to read because of her perspective, but also it just drug on and on and on and on, and I'm pretty sure that the ending was not even very surprising, and we all know that I don't look into things very much, so the fact that I was able to guess the ending just meant that it wasn't the best. But try it out if you're interested. I just gave it 2 stars, and I really wouldn't recommend it personally, but everybody likes their own thing. Next, I finally finished The War of Two Queens, which means I finished or caught up completely to the end of the From Blood and Ash series. I did finish it. I just listened to it on audiobook because it was taking me forever to get through it, and I was just ready to be done. So this is the 4th book in the From Blood and Ash series. If you haven't read it yet, go read it. I really can't share a lot of information about that book because it's the most updated series of events, and so it would spoil like everything else. So I did give it 3 stars. I just over the last few books, like the 1st and 2nd books were my favorite, and then the 3rd and 4th just felt like they drug on for entirely too long, and I've talked about it for Crown of Gilded Bones. Like it was a lot, so I gave it 3 stars. I would recommend the entire series. I just feel like there was a lot of extra in this book that didn't need to be in there, and it took me forever. That's why it took me so long to read it, because the first 2 books I finished in like a week. Like it didn't take me very long, and then these just have been taking forever. So I did enjoy it, but it's not my favorite of the series. I did like a certain scene at the end of A War of Two Queens, and that book, or that scene, made me want to seek out similar scenes in other books. So I looked for a very short romance with certain aspects to it. I don't want to give up any spoilers for War of Two Queens, but I read Kiss of Smoke, which is the first book in the Dragon Laird series, and I gave it 3 stars. It's not bad, but it is very insta-love. We're getting right to it type of situation, and they were trying to have a plot, but there really wasn't a plot to it, so it got kind of hard to get through at the end, and there were a little bits and pieces that were cringy, but otherwise it wasn't too bad. But it did kind of feed what I wish I had more of from Blood and Ash. So after that, I read The Housemaid, and this one I have heard wonderful things about, and I gave it 5 stars because it was wonderful. And it follows a lady who is basically living out of her car. She just got out of prison, so she's trying to find new jobs, and she applies to be a housemaid for this like rich couple that lives in a McMansion. And she starts working for them, and she lives in the house with them, and then things start getting real weird, and the wife gets real funky. And of course there's the situation of the whole almost relationship between the nanny, or she's not a nanny, but the housemaid and the dad. That throws a wrench in some stuff, and there is a pretty big plot twist at the end. I mean, you could probably guess it, but I say that for literally every book. I didn't guess it. I thought it was good, and I gave it 5 stars. You should read it. And coming up very soon, I want to read, I think it's called The Housemaid's Secret, and it's like a second book. I don't know if it's related to the first one or not, but it's written by the same author. And Frida McFadden is also coming out with more books soon, and I really just wanted to binge her entire like reading list because I really liked that book. I know that there's hit or miss on some of them, but it was really good. Next, to continue on my thriller kick, I read My Lovely Wife, and this follows a suburban couple who are serial killers. And basically they're mimicking a serial killer from the area that killed a bunch of people back in the day. They're trying to make it seem like he came back, and I feel like it's very hard to give the synopsis of thrillers sometimes when you don't want to spoil anything. But basically things don't go as they planned, and you kind of watch them have this internal battle between each other because they're about to get caught, and there's certain things that have to be done so that they don't get caught, and then there's a big plot twist at the end, so it's really good. I'm gonna tag all these down below also so you can go read the synopsis for yourself because these are terrible, but yeah. And the last book that I read in the month of April is Red Rising, and I'm really excited I finally finished this. So looking at my Goodreads, I tried to start this November 29th of 2020, and I stopped because I wasn't in like a fantasy mood. So my Goodreads says I started it on November 29th, 2020, and I finished on April 30th, 2023. So it took me 3 years to finish this book. I'm just kidding. It didn't take me that long, but I hate that I waited so long to read this. Plain and simple. If you don't know what Red Rising is about, it's about our main character named Darrow, who is a red. He lives on the planet of Mars underneath the surface, where he mines like helium, and a series of unfortunate events takes place, and he ends up in a competition to become a gold, which is like the highest, the elite people on the planet. And so it's kind of like a Hunger Games-esque type of situation, like everyone's kind of fighting for their survival, kind of, and they're being watched and like proctored essentially. So I gave it 5 stars because I did enjoy it, and I love me a good competition. And I know these are all like thoughts that I've said throughout my reading vlogs, but it is what it is. All right, so on to the books that I read in the month of May. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know this, but I started up a book club, and this month is our first month, and we actually meet up tonight. I'm very excited, so we'll see how that goes. Doesn't look like it's going to be a big turnout, but anywho, that's besides the point. So I did finish both of our book club picks for the month, and the first one is Throttled by Lauren Asher. This book follows Maya, who is the sister of a F1 race car driver, and she goes on basically is it called a circuit, like the tour that they take and they do all the races and stuff. She follows him on his circuit and kind of like vlogs the whole thing. And while she's there, she meets his opponent, but he's not actually his opponent. He's now his teammate. So Noah is also an F1 racer, and him and Maya's brother got into a really bad wreck a couple years before this story takes place. So they've kind of become rivals. Well, then they both end up working for the same team. So they're actually teammates, but they kind of harbor this like hatred for each other that spills over into their racing as a team. So basically it's split perspective between Maya and Noah, and there's kind of like this like almost forbidden romance because Noah and, oh, Santi, my bad, Santi? Yeah, Santiago. Okay, so Noah, there's almost a forbidden romance because Noah and Santiago, Mayo's brother, because Noah and Santiago, Maya's brother, have the rivalry. So Maya knows that she can't be with Noah because they hate each other, but also she shouldn't be with Noah because she's like, he got into this big wreck. Anyways, so it's like almost a kind of grumpy sunshine, forbidden romance type of situation. Yeah, it's great. I give it 4 stars. I don't, oh, there could have been more smut in it, to be completely honest with you. There was a good amount, but there definitely could have been more. And honestly, I think that's the only reason I didn't give it 5 stars. There wasn't really any other problems. I did enjoy it, and I'm honestly debating reading the rest of the series. They don't follow the same character, like the same 2 main characters, but they follow other characters that are in this book, so yeah. Next, I just had to continue my smut reading, and I wanted to read Pucking Around, but when I started that, it told me to read That One Night, which is like a prequel. So I read That One Night, and this is another one that I really thoroughly enjoyed. I gave it 5 stars. Basically, it is a 75 page novella, essentially, of the events that take place before Pucking Around. And it follows Jake and Rachel, who are both in Seattle for different events and happen to meet each other at a bar. And there's really no plot to That One Night. It's all smut, like straight up. Pucking Around, there becomes a plot. But this one, there's no plot, and it's great. It's wonderful. Perfect. 65 pages, done. It was great. Next, I read Dead Silence, and this is so good. I did really like it. I gave it 5 stars. It was one of my first like kind of paranormal, horror-ish type of thrillers, and I really enjoyed it. So it follows our main character. I'm gonna call her TL because that's what they call her in the book. She is a team leader on a spaceship, and while they are about to get ready to head home, they get a distress signal on an old SOS channel, and they decide to go investigate. And when they go investigate, they find a ship that has been missing for 20 years, and to be able to claim the ship as their own property, they have to go onto it to retrieve an item to prove that, like, hey, this is ours, we actually found it, whatever. And then things start to go really downhill. It's like Ghost Ship, Titanic-esque, but like in space, and then the ending, you're just like, so it's really good. You should read it. And last but not least, I finished this morning, Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This was an emotional roller coaster-ish. The ending, let me tell you, when I stopped tabbing because I was listening on audiobook, that was the best time to tab. Like, it's crazy. Warbreaker follows 2 sisters, Siri and Vivina, that get tangled up in a whole bunch of political mess that their dad got into. So basically, there was a treaty between the Idrians and the Halandrins. Idria and Halandrin, that is what the places are called. And so Halandrin is run by a god king, and Idris is ran by a normal king. And they made a treaty that said on the normal king's daughter's 22nd birthday, like his oldest daughter's 22nd birthday, she was supposed to go to Halandrin to marry the god king and bear an heir. And this time rolls around, and instead of sending Vivina, the oldest sister, he decides to send Siri, which is the younger troublemaker of the 2. and she kind of has to navigate this weird like world that she's been in, obviously because she is a royal, but like she has to learn court life. She has to learn about Halandrin because everything she's been taught her whole life is the complete opposite where she ends up. And while she is over there, her sister Vivina decides that she's going to go rescue her because, one, that was supposed to be the job that she was supposed to do. She was trained her whole life to do it, and Ciri has no idea what she should be doing, and she just wants to get her sister back. So she embarks on this adventure to go save her sister, and yeah, it's really good. I enjoyed it. I did give it 4 stars just because I wasn't really in a fantasy mood while I was reading it, and I feel like otherwise I would have given it 5, but I just feel like it kind of drug on a little bit, and I am a big action girly, so. Okay, and to finish up this video, I'm going to go ahead and let you know the books that I plan to read and really hope that I get around to reading in the month of June. So first is obviously Pucking Around. I do have this physically, but it is in my bedroom and my husband's asleep, so we're not going to disturb the beast. I'm about halfway through with it and I'm really enjoying it right now, so I hope to finish it soon. Then I'm planning on listening to the audiobook You Shouldn't Have Come Here. To be able to listen to Warbreaker, got another library card for Libby, and they have way more available than any of the other libraries I've been using. So I kind of just went on there, found something that was on my list and found it on the library and decided I wanted to listen to it. So that is my second book. And then my 2 book club picks for the month of June are Priest, which is our smutty book, and All the Dangerous Things, which is our main book. I really wanted to read a thriller this month. I'm not in a fantasy mood really anymore. That's why I don't have any listed on my thing, and I haven't really thought of any that I plan on reading anytime soon, but I'll figure it out. I don't really know the synopses of these stories. I don't like to read them because I like to just be surprised once I read the book, so can't really tell you what those are about, but once again, I'll link them down below. That concludes this video. Sorry it was so long, but I had to fit 2 months into one video. If you have any book recommendations, video recommendations, anything like that, please leave them down in the comments. And otherwise, I will see y'all next time. Bye, guys.